The abduction of Corina Sables is perhaps one of the most controversial and outlandish claims on record. Even within the UFO community, it would appear that opinion is very much divided as to whether the account is a genuine, horrific, and ongoing ordeal, or whether it is one designed to generate income, fame, or both. That isn't to say that Sables doesn't offer proof of her encounters with the presence of physical injuries and markings of the experiences. And what's more, many of the memories she has since recovered match many other similar claims of alien abduction, right down to the chilling realization that such events likely began with the abductee being a young child, as well as the fact that it also very likely runs through families going back generations. According to the report, Corina Sables and her friend, known only as Jane Doe, would make a last-minute decision to drive to a quiet spot in Glenmore in British Columbia, Canada, shortly after midnight on the 31st July 2003, so they could watch the stars. I thought the traffic was relatively busy initially, especially for such a late hour. It would suddenly decrease shortly after they chose a spot to pull off the road. While Sables used the flashlight to highlight points above, her friends used the binoculars to scan the blackness above. Within only a few seconds, she settled upon 3 stars up in the sky, which were clearly in a strange triangle shape. The stars were extremely bright and a solid white. Then they began moving together as one object. The 2 women reasoned with each other that perhaps it was a plane. Of course, they quickly dismissed this idea. Planes didn't stop and hover, and the lights were now changing color to a neon green. Then it came to a stop once more, just above the now very lonely highway. Sables reached for the car headlights and switched them off. She would take the flashlight and swing it beam around the area around them. She was looking for any wild animals that sometimes lurked in the area. As the beam broke the darkness of the road ahead of them, and under where the lights were hovering, both women could see 5 sets of eyes looking toward them. At first, Sables told herself these were indeed a pack of wild animals. She wouldn't then state thought, once you really look, your brain takes it in. In front of them, hitting their highway, were 5 creatures around 4 feet tall, with thin gray shoulders topping an equally thin frame. A surge of fear rushed through Sables, so much so that she began to struggle to breathe. She urged her friend to get in the car. However, as both women struggled to do so, everything went into slow motion, literally. Both felt as though they were moving through quicksand. Despite this, they eventually reached the car and slammed their respective doors shut behind them. However, the windows were powered operate, and so the engine had to be started to close them. Try as she might, the ignition wouldn't catch, and the car remained idle. Finally, amid all of the vehicle electrics going nuts, the engine started. Sables pushed the button to bring the windows up and then sped away from the area, turning around in the middle of the road and heading back the way they came. After several moments, they realized that increasingly more traffic was around their car. They asked each other where this sudden array of vehicles had suddenly come from, and perhaps most importantly, why there was no traffic only moments ago when the strange creatures were heading toward them. Then, as she guided the car down the highway, Sables would state to her friend that she had the weirdest feeling, as though there was electricity running through her body, as if I was zapped by a charge from a battery. Jane, more relieved than unnerved, relented. She had the same feeling, as though she was hit by an electric charge. However, when the 2 women suddenly noticed the clock on the car's dashboard, They both froze momentarily. They had only been out of the car a matter of minutes, not even 5. However, according to the time, almost half an hour had gone by, time that neither woman could recall. The two women would begin to discuss if they might have shared a strange hallucination, or if they had simply imagined the whole thing. However, as they neared home, driving along a road next to a large field, the glowing neon green ball appeared again, this time very low in the sky. It would move and then stop. It would do this several times. Eventually, Sebels would bring the car a halt, although the engine remained running. Almost as soon as she did so, the object began to approach at a rapid speed. Suddenly, it was directly over the top of their vehicle. Sebels pressed down hard on the gas and the car sped away. Instead of remaining on the road, though, she would take the vehicle into an orchard, carefully negotiating the trees. Eventually, she brought the car to a stop. With no lights here and the car's all power switched off, it was her hope that they could remain here unseen until the strange object moved on, whatever it was. They remained silent for several minutes. Then, Jane alerted Sebels to look out of the front window of the car. High above, there was not only one green light, 3 of them now hovered overhead, their glow visible through the trees. At the moment when the object moved, all the green lights moved together. However, after a short time, they appeared to separate, each moving independently of the others. Taking their chance, Sebels turned off the engine and sped away. This time, they would arrive at Sebels' home with no further incidents. However, once there, they would make more startling discoveries. After a short discussion of the night's events, the two women would go to their beds and attempt to get some sleep. However, upon waking the following morning, they would discover strange markings and bruises on their bodies. Sebels, for example, would find a large bruise on her left breast. Furthermore, after feeling discomfort, she would find a similar one on the underside of her foot. Both were extremely painful to touch. While the two women sat drinking coffee shortly after walking, Jane exclaimed how rough she felt that morning. Almost in sympathy with her words, a stream of blood came from her nose and onto the table below. As her friend pressed a towel to her nose, Jane also claimed her lower back was in a lot of pain. When Sebels examined it, she discovered a circle burned into her skin in the lower middle back area. After informing Jane of her own bruise mark, they further examined Jane's body. They discovered similar bruises to Sebels, but also 3 strange finger marks on each of her thighs. Incidentally, Jane was visiting Sebels for nearby Abbotsford. In light of the recent events, she would decide to head home several days early. Upon arriving back home, she would see her local doctor regarding the still constant back pain. When examining the strange burn mark on her back, he would claim to be similar to a radiation burn. According to Sebels, her friend still has problems with this. When Sebels' 18-year-old son came to stay with her several months after the sighting, she would notice something on his back that would fill her with horror. Something that would not only cause her immediate concern, but would remind her of her own experience as a young child. On his back was a bizarre triangular mark with strange circular marks within it. When she was 12 years old, she would notice one random morning that a similar scoop mark was there on her leg. She couldn't help but feel the markings on her as a child and those on her son now were much more than coincidence. What made her even more concerned was when her son was only 9. A small hole was discovered in his spine due to a mystery infection, one that would take months of antibiotics and treatment to combat. With this in mind, she would take her son to seek medical attention regarding the strange scoop marks on his back. However, despite intense examination, the doctor could provide no explanation for the marks or their sudden appearance. Interestingly, Sevils would notice how that morning, when leaving the house, she had noticed how the tops of the trees near her home were yellow, like they were slightly burned. It would seem like many other cases of repeat abduction, if we accept without question the account is genuine for a moment, that her son is subject to the same abductions by the same extraterrestrials. It is highly likely that Sable's own parents, and perhaps even there before that, also experienced such incidents, whether or not they were aware of or even acknowledged them. It is a detail that suggests monitoring of certain bloodlines, genes, and entire generations of families. Of course, for what purpose remains unknown. What is also of particular interest here is that UFO sightings in British Columbia, much like Canada as a whole, were at their highest levels for years. Furthermore, in the final days of July and every early August 2003 in the British Columbia area, a sudden surge of UFO sightings occurred. It is not too much of a stretch of the mind to think that Seville's and Jane's apparent abduction occurring during this wave within a wave of UFO sightings. One particular sighting involving a resident of Kelowna, where Seville resides, stands out somewhat from the rest. She claimed that on the evening of 31st July 2003, she had gotten out of bed at some time after midnight from not being able to sleep. It was particularly warm that evening, so she went outside into her yard for some fresh air. As she was looking at the night sky, she focused in on a bright light that at first appeared to be a plane. However, she quickly realized it didn't move like a plane. Furthermore, it was an almond shape and glowed a luminous green color. She also noticed bizarrely that while only moments early she could hear all the usual sounds of the night, coyotes, insects, and even distant traffic. As the glowing green craft went across the sky, everything became absolutely silent. It was, she would later describe, as if someone had clicked off a switch. Obviously, the times, details, glowing green light, and location of this particular sighting, made completely independently of Sable's own report, matched almost exactly the time and location of her and Jane's apparent abduction encounter. That the area had several other reports around this time would appear to add more credence to Sable's account. As for Sable's, in the years since the encounter, she believes she had unlocked much of what has happened. And what's more, it has been happening for most of her life, as well as other members of her family from generation to generation. She believes, for example, that the encounters began for her around the age of 4 or 5. However, from being a teenager, the visitors became more frequent. They would take DNA and other medical samples from her. And perhaps most chilling, these visitations continue today. Furthermore, several witnesses, including friends and family, have been present when huge ships have gone over the house, or have even discovered one of them missing for a considerable amount of time, only for them to reappear, usually initially unaware of anything untoward. She also believes the extraterrestrials involved in these abductions are the Greys, which she describes as having no emotions and who are like robots who simply come to do their jobs. This, she believes, in why they don't react to any amount of suffering or pain that the subject might experience. Who is behind the Greys, however, if indeed such force is remain a mystery? Sevils incidentally states that aliens, like humans, have benevolent ones and also malevolent ones. Whether Sevils' claims are 100% genuine, an elaboration of an initial incident, or completely manufactured is a question still debated in some corners of the UFO community. It is thought an incident that deserves its place in the files, and deserves further study and cross-referencing research with other similar cases. And you, what do you think? Let us know in a comment, give us a like and subscribe for more stories. See you the next time.